How do I stop recording?
All right. Good morning.
Good morning. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Pause.
Okay, Philip, Emily, I think we can go ahead and get started. I think we have everybody that confirmed they're going to be here is here.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, David, and thank you everybody for joining us today. I'm Phillip Hudspeth. I'm an outreach program analyst with Paid Leave Oregon. I'm going to introduce my colleague, Emily. Emily. So Emily's going to help with flipping the slides today and then answer your questions after our presentation. So sorry we can't be with you today in person. Mother Nature had other plans for us trying to get over to the North Coast today. So our intention is to provide for this session is to provide a brief overview of paid leave and then open up the rest of our time together to answer your questions or clarifications you might have about the program. So today we'll spend a few minutes providing an overview of our program, including specific topics that are covered on this slide. As we conclude this program, again, we'll take your questions and we'll just go from there. Okay, so when does paid leave start? Businesses, workers, and other advocate groups have been talking about bringing a paid leave program to Oregon since 2016. And paid leave was passed by the Oregon legislature in 2019 under House Bill 2005. And the bill received support from various unions, organizations, and our advisory committee, who's made up of members representing businesses, workers, and community voices. And Oregon joins one of 11 other states and the District of Columbia that have paid leave programs. And currently this year, there are 5 other states, that's New Mexico, Minnesota, Michigan, Illinois, and Maine that are discussing legislation for a paid leave program. We are on track to meet all our major deliverables for paid leave. So we started accepting applications for equivalent plans, and I'll talk about a little bit about equivalent plans later in the presentation. We started taking applications for those in September of 2022. Contributions began January 1 of 2023, and benefits will begin on September 3rd of 2023. So paid leave covers nearly all employers in Oregon, including nonprofits, S corporations, religious organizations. All employees except for employees of federal and tribal governments are required to participate in the paid leave program. So in Oregon, paid leave is for up to 12 weeks, with 2 additional weeks possible for some pregnancy-related conditions. And leave can be taken in 3 broad categories. There's family leave, which is to care for a family member with a serious illness or injury, or to bond with a new child after birth, adoption, or foster care placement. There's medical leave, and that's for during one's own serious health condition. And then there's safe leave, which is for survivors of sexual assault, domestic violence, harassment, or stalking. Now, paid leave does not replace existing leave programs such as the Oregon Family Leave Act and the Federal Medical and Family Leave, or excuse me, the Federal Family and Medical Leave Act. Paid leave statute limits the total number of weeks of combined paid and unpaid leave in a benefit year up to 16 weeks. So that's 12 weeks of paid leave and then another 4 weeks under OFLA as unpaid leave. There would be the possibility of those 2 additional weeks for some pregnancy-related conditions. Employees may still have access to other types of leave programs, such as short-term or long-term disability, employer, union, or private plans, Oregon sick leave, or other accrued leave. If an employee is eligible for unemployment insurance or workers' compensation, then they are not eligible for paid leave. Paid leave does not prohibit employees from taking short-term or long-term disabilities while on paid leave. We do recommend that they consult with their insurance provider to see if the insurance provider allows that. Okay. So paid leave is for what we would call a serious health condition. And so paid leave's definition of a serious health condition is similar to what's currently under the Oregon Family Leave Act. There are some differences. So aspects of serious health conditions that qualify for paid leave and OFLA, the Oregon Family Leave Act, but are not limited to conditions that require inpatient care. They would require constant or continuous care, involve a period of incapacity, which would involve 2 or more treatments by a healthcare provider or a regimen of continuing care, or there's a diagnosis of death or terminal prognosis, involve a period of disability due to pregnancy or childbirth, or excuse me, pregnancy, childbirth, or a period of absence for prenatal care, involve the need for leave to donate a body part, organ, or tissue. There is a noticeable difference between OFLA and paid leave. It is that paid leave recognizes serious health conditions that involve a period of disability due to miscarriage or stillbirth. And this includes both the physical and mental impacts related to the loss of a pregnancy. You know, one thing that's unique under paid leave is our definition of a family member is broader. So paid leave defines a family member as anyone that's related to the employee by birth or affinity. And while we're working on the application for paid leave benefits, and so again, benefits are not going to go live until September 3rd. There's a lot we do know about the application process. So we're going to require to verify eligibility for the leave. So for medical leave, the employee will need to verify their own or their family member's serious health condition by providing their basic information and information about their healthcare provider, the date when the serious health condition began or when it created a need for leave, the estimated duration of leave, and information sufficient to establish that the claimant or their family member has a serious health condition.
Phillip, is that information garnered from the doctor, or is it just an attestation by the employee?
So the employee is going to have to provide that verification information from their medical provider. So there'll be a form that will be seeking that their medical care provider provides that, and it'll be incumbent to the employee to provide that information. And I'll talk a little bit more about that the employee responsibilities in just a moment. So let's talk about what we need for verification for bonding with a child. So as I mentioned earlier, you can take leave during the first year of the child's, for the first year in the child's life after birth, adoption, or foster care placement.
Bear with me for a second here. There we go.
I don't know.
First time it came back, well, yeah.
Okay, we're back.
Okay. So for verification to apply for family leave for bonding with a child, we'd be looking for a birth certificate, a report of birth abroad, some documentation by a healthcare provider, or such as a hospital admission form. To bond with a new child after adoption or foster care placement, we'd be looking for a court order, a statement from the foster care or adoption agency, or other legal documentation confirming adoption or foster care placement. Now, for verification of safe leave, it can come from a number of places, and documentation can come from an attorney, law enforcement officer, healthcare provider, mental health professional or counselor, member of the clergy, a Title IX coordinator, or a victim services provider, such as a child advocacy center or a sexual assault or domestic violence advocacy program. Paid Leave Oregon does recognize that there are some significant privacy, confidentiality, and safety issues when it comes to safe leave. And in cases of safe leave where the employee is unable to provide verification documentation, they may be eligible to provide a written statement attesting they are taking eligible safe leave. In regards to employer size, there are some different rules for large employers and small employers. Paid leave defines large employers as those with 25 or more employees. And we look at payroll reports that are submitted by the employer to come up with that determination. And employee count will be determined in April for 2023. And the employee count does include full-time, part-time, seasonal, and temporary employees, as well as out-of-state workers. Employers determine their size by counting their total number of employees. Only workers hired to replace employees taking paid leave are excluded from the count. So to come up with to come up with the count for the number of employees, paid leave calculates the employer size for each year using the monthly employee counts for the previous year. The employee count includes all employees on the employer's payroll for the pay period that includes the 12th of the month. So employers count the number of employees covered by unemployment insurance. They add the number of employees that are covered by paid leave but not subject to unemployment insurance, such as LLC officers. Employers then add the total number of employees outside of Oregon, and replacement workers that are brought in for employees that are taking paid leave are subtracted out of that count. Then you divide that number by 12, and then you come up with the number for employee count. And there's a whole list of, there's detailed instructions on how you come up with this information that's found on our resources page at paidleave.oregon.gov. Now, one reason that is significant for the difference between large and small employers is small employers with less than 25 employees, they do not have to pay the employer contribution on employees' paid leave wages. But for small employers that do participate and pay that employer contributions, then they may be eligible for assistance grants. And assistance grants are there to help with the cost of hiring a replacement worker or other significant wage-related costs. And so grants are available up to a $3,000 grant to hire a replacement worker, or $1,000 for a wage-related cost, such as training or overtime costs. And employers can earn up to $30,000 per year in grants there. For place of performance, and this is probably important for you being there in the northwest corner of the state where you have people that live in Washington or work in Washington. We follow similar rules to unemployment insurance. So we'll look at where the base of operation is. So is there a person that's working in Oregon for a Washington employer? Then likely they're already participating in the Oregon unemployment insurance and they would be participating in paid leave. But is the person working in Washington, but they live in Oregon, then they'll likely be participating in the state of Washington's paid leave. So we will look at where the employee's working, where's the work directed from, and where's the employee's residence there. And that's the order we come up with to determine the eligibility for paid leave. So let's talk about the contributions and how we're paying for this program there. And so contributions are based on a percentage of wages paid by both employees and employers. So the contribution rate, or the percentage for paid leave, is set annually no later than November 15th by the Oregon Employment Department, and it cannot exceed 1% of employees' gross wages. And by statute, it can exceed 1% of gross wages. If it needed to go up, it would require the legislature to take action on that. So the 2023 rate is 1% on wages up to $132,900. Wages over $132,900 are not subject to further contributions. And we settled on the 1% rate after 2 years of analysis and actuary data and numerous discussions of our advisory committee that's made up of members representing businesses, worker, and community voices. And there's a number of reasons why this rate was chosen, but it will be reevaluated every year. Employees pay 60% of the contribution rate, and large employers pay 40% of that contribution rate. And as I said earlier, small employers with less than 25 employees are not required to pay the employer contribution portion there. So as an example, somebody earns $1,000 in gross wages. They would pay $6 into the paid leave program. Their large employer would pay $4 into the paid leave program. Employers may choose to pay the employee portion as a benefit to their employees. So let's look at what payroll contributions would look like there. And so this slide shows examples of what contributions would be for a minimum wage worker, somebody in the middle and higher income tax brackets. So a minimum wage worker would pay $168 into paid leave. Their large employer would pay $112. 1 week of paid leave benefits for a minimum wage worker would be $540. Lowest wage workers will receive 100% wage reimbursement, with less than 100% for those workers in middle and higher income jobs. So when we calculate benefits, we're looking at the state average weekly wage to come up with a determination. So for people earning more than 65% of the state average weekly wage, benefits are going to be calculated this way. So we would look at the state average weekly wage plus 50% of your average weekly wages that exceed $1,224. The maximum weekly benefit would be $1,469.78. So, okay. So let's talk about job protections under paid leave. If an employee has worked for their employer 90 days or more, their job is protected while they're on paid leave. And this is similar to what the rule is under the Oregon Family Leave Act. This does apply to both large and small employers. If that employee's position no longer exists, then the employer may choose to place that employee in a different position with similar job duties at the same rate of pay. Okay, so employees' responsibilities for their employer within regards to paid leave. All right, so it's the employee's choice to decide if they want to take paid leave or if they want to use their accrued leave or pursue unpaid leave such as OFLA or FMLA there. Employees are required to provide their employer with appropriate notice when they plan to take paid leave. So for examples of foreseeable leave, so this is if somebody needs to have a scheduled surgery or they're expecting a child on a date, they need to provide their employer 30 days notice. In the case of an unforeseeable leave, so if somebody has a sudden illness, a sudden accident, they need to they need to provide their employer with verbal notice within 24 hours and written notice within 3 days. The Oregon administrative rule does allow for good cause if the employee is not able to provide notice within that time frame. Once the employee is on approved paid leave, they will be required to notify the employment department if there's any change in their leave status. Okay. So what are the employer responsibilities? So you might, excuse me, you might have seen this model notice. This came out with your notification on unemployment insurance back in November. Employers should provide their employees information about the program by providing them with this model notice, and it's available on our website. And this poster should be placed in an area frequented by employees, such as a break room or other shared spaces. And you should post it like with a BOLI or an OSHA poster. For employees that might be working remotely, this can be delivered by hand, mail, or electronically. Employers began withholding contributions January 1 of this year, and they will submit those contributions on behalf of their employees. If they're a large employer, they'll pay 40% of the employer's share of the contribution. And the contributions will be reported and submitted on the combined payroll report. A comprehensive guide for employers called the Employer Toolkit can be found on our website at paidleave.oregon.gov. Employers will be notified at least twice when they have an employee that applies for paid leave. And so once when we receive the initial application for benefits, and a second time when their claim is approved or denied. If an employee needs to extend their leave or change how many days in a week they need to take leave, for example, the employer will be notified at that time as well. Information that paid leave will share with employers when a claim is approved or denied includes the employee's name, the approval or denial decision, if approved, the period of leave, so the number of approved weeks are days, and then leave dates, when it starts and when it ends, and how many days per week. Paid leave will not share health information related to family, medical, or safe leave with the employers. Equally, employees are not required to share any health information with their employers. So taxability. Paid leave Oregon contributions are taken out post-tax, and they're not going to reduce your taxable income. Paid leave benefits are taxable, and taxes will not be automatically withheld from benefits. The Oregon Department of Revenue provided a detailed information about the treatment for contributions and benefits in a memo that's on our website. I did provide links to a lot of these resources to David to share with the group at a later time. So equivalent plans. I made reference to this earlier. There will be employers that have chosen not to participate in supporting the state trust for paid leave. They will end up choosing to do a self-administered plan or purchasing a plan through a third-party provider. Equivalent plans provide the same level of benefits as paid leave, or they provide a higher level of benefits as paid leave. So for more information on equivalent plans, you can find out on our website, paidleave.oregon.gov. But employers can't charge employees any more than what they would charge under the state plan, and they can have employees withhold contributions. Okay, so Francis, the Oregon Employment Department's new system is ready for use, Francis Online, and this is replacing the old Oregon payroll reporting system, the employer account access portal. The new system will support combined payroll reporting, including unemployment insurance, workers' benefit fund, statewide withholding tax, lane and TriMet transit taxes, statewide transit tax, and paid leave Oregon contributions. You can learn more about Francis. We are encouraging all employers to make sure that they're signed up with Francis. This is how we will be notifying employers if they have an employee that applies for paid leave benefits. So make sure that they're registered with Francis and all their contact information is up to date, including if they're using a third-party administrator. So more information about Francis is at francisinfo.oregon.gov. So I'm going to do a very brief recap, and then I'm going to turn it over to Emily to answer your questions that you might have on paid leave. So the contribution rate for paid leave for 2023 is 1% of employees' gross wages. Any employee, regardless of the number of hours that they've worked in the year, if they've earned at least $1,000 in the year prior to claiming paid leave, may be eligible for paid leave benefits. If you earned $1,000 in wages, you would pay $6 into that. Your large employer would pay $4 into the paid leave program. Minimum weekly benefit is $61.24. The maximum would be $1,469. Again, employees' jobs are protected after 90 days if they've worked with their employer and they've been approved for paid leave and they're out on paid leave. Okay, so this is it for our brief overview. I'm going to open it up to your questions. Please feel free to shout that out, and my colleague Emily will be glad to answer your questions.
I have a question. I'm an employer with offices in both Washington and Oregon. My total in the long run might exceed 25, but not in any given state. So if I have, say, 10 employees in Oregon and 15 employees in Washington, would I have to contribute?
In this instance, you would have to contribute for your Oregon employees, just that portion of your employees, to the Oregon paid leave program, and contribute to the Washington program for Washington paid leave.
And it sounds like likely you would be considered a large employer. The thing that I would encourage you to do is just look at the formula for how we come up with that count. And if you don't average 25 employees through the course of the year, then you would be considered a small employer. But it would be taking the overall count between both states there. You'd just be paying contributions on your Oregon employees there. And again, if you're a small employer and opt in, you'd be eligible for assistance grants.
Any other questions?
I have a question about like a very, very part-time employee. I don't know that she made $1,000 last year.
Hmm.
So I'm just, and she's a minor also, so she just works kind of whenever, that she's a relative. So are we supposed to be taking her contribution out even though she probably wouldn't qualify for paid leave?
Yes, paid leave covers part-time employees as well as full-time employees. If you are a large, no, I'm sorry. Regardless of your employee size, you should be withholding contributions.
But here it says at least $1,000, they have to make that before they can claim it.
They have to make that before they can claim the benefit, but you would still need to withhold the contributions.
Even if she's not going to ever make 1,000 in the year.
That's right.
Yeah, it would also be cumulative, like with unemployment insurance. So she might not earn $1,000 this quarter or the previous quarter, but she might earn $1,000 in the next quarter. And if she had a qualifying event, she would then have a wage history where she could potentially be eligible for paid leave benefits.
Okay.
But I hear what you're saying. Even if she didn't earn $1,000 over the course of the year, you would need to withhold her portion of the contributions.
Okay, and then as far as the Francis Online, we use a third-party provider or for payroll, and they do all the reporting for us. So do I still set up an account with that and then they do whatever they do, or?
Phillip?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
So you would just want to make sure that, for one, you can look at your own records and make sure that everything's is correct for what's being reported. But if you're using the third-party administrator, going through Francis, you can just designate them as your third-party administrator. So if they're doing payroll or any other like HR services for you. But the other thing is just making sure that your contact information is up to date with the employment department in case you have an employee that does apply for paid leave benefits, and that way you'll be notified and receive that timely.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Okay.
We'll be sorry again that we couldn't make it over to Astoria today. If you have businesses, other organizations that you think could benefit from a paid leave program, please reach out to us. David's got my contact information, but you can also email us paidleave@oregon.gov. Again, that's paidleave@oregon.gov. And we'll be happy to schedule a presentation, whether it's virtually or in person, just as long as Mother Nature cooperates with us there.
Good. All right, Philip, Emily, thank you very much.
Thank
Great.
you for having us.
Thank you.